The Galactic Defense Academy on Kepler Station had trained warriors from 47 species over the last 3 centuries. Its halls had witnessed fear, triumph, injury, and occasionally death. But in all those 300 years, not one instructor had ever heard a student laugh at the Venom demonstration. Until today, Instructor Lyra of the Veltheri stood at the front of the survival chamber, her iridescent scales catching the blue light of the station's artificial sun. She was considered one of the finest combat survival instructors in the known galaxy, a veteran of 6 wars, a survivor of the Crimson Nebula siege, and the only living being to have walked barefoot across the sulfur plains of Draxus 4 and returned with all her limbs intact. She did not frighten easily, but the human standing in the back row was making her reconsider that assessment. His name was Orion Cole, to be precise, one of 12 humans recently enrolled in the Academy's elite hostile terrain survival program. He was lean but not slight, with dark eyes that carried the unsettling quality of someone who found the universe quietly amusing. He had short-cropped dark hair, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from something harder than bone, and a scar running from his left ear to his collarbone that no one had yet dared to ask about. He had been quiet all morning, attentive even. Lyra had almost been impressed. Then she had introduced the Crix Viper. The creature in the sealed transparasteel case was roughly a meter long, midnight black with orange banding along its underbelly. It moved with the slow, deliberate elegance of something that had never once worried about being eaten. The Crix Viper was found exclusively on the swamp moons of the Veltheri homeworld and was, by universal scientific consensus, one of the 10 most dangerous organisms in the cataloged galaxy. This, Lyra said, tapping the case with one clawed finger, is why you do not set camp in tall grass on any moon in the Veltheri system. A single bite from a mature Crix injects enough paralytic neurotoxin to immobilize a Gorvan bull in 40 seconds. A Gorvan bull weighs approximately 900 kilograms. She paused for effect, letting that sink in. The venom then begins liquefying soft tissue from the inside. Death follows in approximately 6 minutes. There is no known antidote available in field conditions. Silence swept through the chamber. A Xarthian cadet near the front had gone visibly pale, or whatever passed for pale in a species whose natural skin tone was deep violet. The twin urine brothers in the second row had both wrapped their extra arms tightly around their torsos, a gesture Lyra knew meant existential unease. And then, from the back row, came a sound. A short, low chuckle. Lyra's spine stiffened. Every head in the room turned. Orion was standing with his arms loosely crossed, one corner of his mouth pulled upward, staring at the Crix Viper with an expression that could only be described as fond recognition. Cadet Cole. Lyra's voice dropped to the temperature of deep space. Is something funny? Orion blinked, as if he'd momentarily forgotten he was in a room full of people. Sorry, instructor. He tilted his head slightly, studying the snake. It reminded me of something. It reminded you, Lyra repeated slowly. Of something. A cottonmouth. Back home. He paused. Well, bigger than a cottonmouth, but the coloring's similar. Lyra stared at him. You are comparing the Crix Viper to a creature from Earth. Not comparing exactly. He shrugged one shoulder. The markings. My grandfather used to fish the bayous in Louisiana. Said you learned to watch for the orange belly in the water. Same instinct, I guess. The chamber was utterly silent. Lyra set down her pointer. She was an instructor. She was professional. She was a veteran of 6 wars. Cadet Cole, she said carefully. Are you telling me that Earth has organisms with a similar threat profile to the Crix Viper? Orion seemed to genuinely think about this. I mean, sort of. I guess it depends what you mean by similar. Paralytic venom. Tissue necrosis. Lethal without treatment. Oh, sure. Yeah, we have things like that. He said it the same way someone might say, oh, sure, we have pizza places like that. Black Mamba, Inland Taipan, King Cobra, Russell's Viper. He caught the look on her face and stopped. Sorry, is this not the time? You are, Lyra said, with tremendous restraint, listing them. There are more, if that's useful. It was not useful. It was profoundly destabilizing. Lyra looked around the room, at the pale Xarthian, at the anxious urine brothers, at the 11 other humans sitting in various states of calm that suddenly seemed less like bravery and more like baseline normality, and felt the ground shift slightly under her feet. "How many venomous species," she said, each word precise and deliberate, "does Earth have?" Orion pulled a breath through his teeth. "Venomous specifically? Or toxic more broadly?" "There is a difference. Venomous is when it bites or stings you. Toxic is when you bite it and you die." He said this completely without irony. Poison dart frogs are toxic. Box jellyfish are venomous. Different delivery system. Lyra pressed 2 fingers to her temple ridge. "How many?" Orion appeared to do actual mental arithmetic. "Few 100,000, give or take. If you're counting insects and arachnids. There are about 600 venomous snake species alone. Roughly 200 of those can kill a human without treatment." The Xarthian cadet made a sound like a very small engine failing. "And you," Lyra said slowly, "grew up on this planet. Born and raised." Orion's tone was entirely matter-of-fact. "Texas, specifically. We had rattlesnakes, scorpions, brown recluse spiders, fire ants, Africanized bees, cottonmouths, copperheads." He seemed to register the expression on her face again and pivoted. "The point is, you learn to look where you step. Check your boots in the morning. Don't reach into dark spaces without a light. Basic stuff." Lyra looked at the Crix Viper, her apex demonstration organism, the creature that reliably reduced hardened military cadets to pale silence every single semester. And for a brief, disorienting moment, it seemed almost quaint. "Cadet Cole," she said. "Instructor, why did you join the hostile terrain survival program?" He considered the question with what appeared to be genuine thoughtfulness. "Honestly, my sister did a tour on a jungle moon near Arcturus and said the survival training wasn't rigorous enough. She nearly got taken out by a predator that she said was..." A brief flicker of something moved across his face, slower than a Florida gator and about half as mean. She thought the program needed someone who could help close the gap. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to look at the Crix Viper, then back at Orion. "What," she said, very quietly, "is a Florida gator?" "Alligator. American alligator, technically. Alligator mississippiensis." He pulled out his datapad, found a file, and held it up. "About 4 to 5 meters for a big male. Armored skin, death roll bite, ambush predator, been around since before the dinosaurs. They live in the same swamps as the cottonmouths, actually. My grandfather used to fish around them." A small pause. "He lived to 91. The room had developed the specific texture of silence that follows a statement no one knows how to respond to. Lyra looked at the datapad image, at the ancient, armored, deeply unbothered creature staring back at her from what appeared to be a completely normal river, and made a decision that veteran instructors occasionally had to make. She adapted. "Cadet Cole," she said, straightening her posture and reclaiming authority from the jaws of the last 5 minutes. "I am revising the program curriculum, effective next cycle. You will assist me in developing a supplemental module." Her tone left no room for discussion. "Earth fauna, threat assessment, survival methodology." Orion blinked. "I'm a first-year cadet. You are the only being in this room who has ever laughed at a Crix Viper and had a valid reason." She picked up her pointer. "That qualifies you." He was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, that same corner of his mouth moved upward. "Yes, instructor." Lyra turned back to face the class, composed, professional, 6-war veteran that she was. "We will continue," she announced. "Those of you who found the Crix Viper alarming are encouraged to sit with that feeling." A brief pause. "And perhaps reconsider your assumptions about which worlds in this galaxy are truly dangerous." Nobody looked at the snake anymore. They were all looking at the humans. Later that evening, Lyra filed a formal research request to the Academy's Xenobiology Department. A comprehensive biological threat index for the planet Earth, third rock from a yellow dwarf star in the Milky Way's Orion arm. The department head responded in 4 hours. His message contained no words. Only a single line. "We already have one. We update it quarterly."